Welcome, everyone, to Recovering Our Wholeness Together with Lynn and Andrea. I'm Andrea. My pronouns are she, her. I live in Philadelphia, which is the traditional land of the Lenape people. I'm in recovery from alcohol, anxiety, disordered eating, lots of other things too. I'm a licensed professional counselor in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, a certified professional recovery coach, a Reiki level 3 master practitioner, an artist, a mom, a friend to Lynn. Lynn, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you. I love that. There's so much depth in that introduction. And I'm Lynn Galliano. I live in the San Francisco East Bay area of California, which is the traditional territory of the Bay Miwok people. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold, so I may be clearing my throat a bit throughout this interview. I apologize ahead. Let's see, I am a Holy Fire Reiki master and Kali Ki Reiki level 2 practitioner. I am a wife, I am a mom, I am a certified mindfulness teacher. I work in the field of applied behavior analysis as a BCBA with children and adults that have an autism diagnosis. And I am also in recovery from alcohol use disorder, trauma, anxiety, lack mentality, and I am a She Recovers Foundation designated coach. So I think I covered most of those things. And we are really super excited today to have with us Christian Standing Stone, who I have become friends with over the past year a bit. And so I have a bio I'm going to be reading off my phone for a second to introduce him. Christian Stone is a Reiki teacher, card reader, and coach with the mission to build 10,000 Reiki businesses for a better world. He is the founder of the Reiki Business Collective, host of the Build Your Reiki Business podcast, and creator of the Reiki Business Summit, which I went to, and it's great. He owns and operates Standing Stones Healing, offering Reiki card reading, coaching, and courses, including Build Your Reiki Business, the Distance Reiki Business Builder, and Unlock Your Card Magic. He is also the author of several books, including Reiki Business Ready, 6 Ways to Know You're Ready for a Reiki Business, Throwing Stones, a Rune Reading Guide, and Standing Like the Stones, Thrive During Life Changes and Transitions. I didn't know about that one, and I'm going to get it. It sounds great. He hikes, gardens, and plays the Native American style flute in central Pennsylvania. Welcome, Christian. Thanks for being
Well,
here.
thank you. Thank you both so very much. I'm honored to be here. I would just like to mention that I live on the banks of the Susquehanna River, the land of the Susquehannock people, people who unfortunately no longer exist.
Mm, thank you for mentioning that.
Thank you. Sending lots of honor and gratitude to the Susquehannock.
Absolutely. I would like to actually start this interview by giving you a compliment. I have been holding this back. I did not post it on Facebook when I wanted to because I wanted to save it for this interview. I wanted to tell you that you said something online that meant a lot to me. It really touched me. We're in several Facebooks together, you and I, and someone had posted a question about giving Reiki to someone who they felt was not holding up their end of the bargain. I'm paraphrasing by continuing to engage in like drinking and smoking and not taking care of themselves, and was kind of asking a question about should I continue to send them Reiki? And there was a lot of different opinions, as Facebook is famous for, but you had this incredibly powerful, compassionate response, which was basically like, who are we to judge? We're not here to say you've earned Reiki. Like this isn't something to earn. It's universal life force energy, and we don't judge. We don't hold people to, our standards of what we think they should be doing. And the reason that that really affected me is I started thinking about, because my initial reaction, Christian, was like, oh yeah, they're not, if they're not trying to help themselves, like I got into my judgy stuff, but I caught myself because I was like, if people had given up on me when I was doing things that I no longer do, when I engaged in behaviors that I no longer engage in, I wouldn't maybe be here. But there was all of these people that supported me and they continued to be my tribe and they believed in me. And, it's life changing. So you just totally embodied that fifth precept of Reiki, of, being kind to every living thing, including yourself. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, thank you, Lynn. I really, truly appreciate your kind words. So thank you. The thing is that Reiki works in ways that we just don't always know or see or understand. And so when we have someone who we are offering Reiki to, be they a client, a family member, a friend, we don't know how Reiki is going to work in and through and on them. And so we may want to offer Reiki to a friend, for instance, for some kind of addiction, let's say to cigarettes. And we really want to offer them Reiki so that they stop smoking. But that's not how Reiki works. Reiki doesn't work where we say, okay, make this person stop smoking. And we don't even know if that's what is in their highest and best good. But our job, our role, and it's no simple one, it is not easy, is to step back and to just send with the trust and the knowing that Reiki is going to do what it needs to do in the way it needs to be done. And that may very well be different from what we envision or want.
Absolutely.
Christian, can you tell us a little bit about your Reiki journey and how it began?
Sure. Thanks, Andrea. So back in 2014, I was teaching at a community college. I have a background as a professor, an English and a business professor. And I was teaching at a community college. And at this community college, I was able to take all kinds of classes. I took card reading classes and I took psychic mediumship classes and just all kinds of cool classes. And one of my colleagues came to me and said, "Hey, Christian, do you know we're teaching Reiki this semester?" And she just walked away. And I was like, oh, she thinks I know what Reiki is. I had heard of Reiki, but I didn't know what it was. As a matter of fact, I had heard about it years before when I was the editor of a holistic metaphysical magazine. And I had written myself a note to find and interview a Reiki practitioner for the magazine. And I know this because I found that note to myself just last year. So I had
That's
heard
great.
about Reiki. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's great. I'd heard about Reiki, but I didn't know what it was. And so when my colleague said, pretty much like, "Oh, you're going to take that Reiki class, right?" I didn't know what it was. So I read the course catalog and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to take this class." And so my goal in taking Reiki was for my own personal and spiritual development. Like it was never anything that I expected to use on other people. It was certainly never anything that I expected to do for a career as a business. Um, and so I went into the training just really looking at it as another way for me to develop and grow personally and spiritually. And the training was all three levels, all of the everything involved with Reiki, and I really enjoyed it. And it was really wonderful. What a great system. I had already been someone who was doing Tai Chi. I had learned some Tai Chi and was already into Eastern philosophy, Buddhism, and Taoism, and different kinds of spiritual practices like that. And so Reiki really did resonate for me on multiple levels. But during my training, it was not anything that I ever expected to do beyond my own personal experience with Reiki. I even remember during the training when my teachers were talking about, oh, these are some things you're going to want to do if you have a business. And the back of my head, I was like, well, I'm never going to need this. I'm not here for that, and never going to need this. But of course, the universe has the last laugh. And so for the first couple of years after I earned my certifications, I was using Reiki on my garden, Reiki on myself, but not on other people until one day a friend of mine was having a major life change. She was going through a really hard time in her life. And I was like, Reiki, you need Reiki. And so we scheduled the time to have my first distance Reiki healing ceremony over the phone. I offered my first distance session over the phone with her. She had such an impactful, life-changing experience from that session that she was referring her friends, and I'm getting calls and texts. Will you do that Reiki thing for me? And so that's how my Reiki business started, was over the phone.
That's incredible. I love that. I too, when I decided to pursue Reiki, take a class, I didn't have the intention of building a business or even doing Reiki for someone else. I just felt this pull, this really strong curiosity about what it was about, from a spiritual perspective, right? Thank you for that background. That's a beautiful story.
Thank you. Yeah, I had kind of a similar thing. I got into Reiki because I ran out of like what I thought were good options for my arthritis. Like I knew I didn't want to survive on painkillers or, and I'm trying to avoid surgery. And I was like, well, I've heard of this. Maybe this will help. And I had, yeah, no intention that it was going to be this life-changing thing where I eat, sleep, and breathe Reiki like the three of us now do. Um, so in your journey into the Reiki world, our show is called Recovering Our Wholeness Together with Lynn and Andrea. Can you think of any ways that your Reiki journey has led you to feel like you recover your wholeness? Like, can you tie in any of that?
Oh my gosh, yes. So for me, my Reiki journey didn't start with my Reiki training. To me, my Reiki journey started many years before, because to me, I needed to be in a place where I was ready for Reiki. And so to me, one of the big experiences I had in my life was I had gone through a really challenging relationship. I was in an abusive relationship. And, I'm a confident person. I am a person who has a solid self-esteem and self-worth. And I never thought that I would be in an abusive relationship. And as a matter of fact, when that relationship finally ended and I had counseling to help me through it, the therapist, he and I were talking about it, and he said, you were in an abusive relationship. Your ex-girlfriend was abusive. I was like, I don't know that. Really? Wow. No one had ever said that. And when he did, I thought, wow, I guess maybe. But that experience really left me in a very challenging place in my life. It was just like I had hit an emotional wall from dealing with the challenges of that relationship for a couple of years. And after that, I don't want to say I was broken, but it kind of really felt that way, after that relationship, when I had hit that emotional wall and really needed to build myself back up from that experience. It was definitely the kind of time when I was putting back the parts, the pieces of myself, and remembering myself and remembering myself. So putting my life back together, and remembering who I was before that relationship experience. And so that was absolutely a time of, remembering my wholeness. And even though that was, quote, before Reiki, it was not before Reiki, because I needed that experience in order to recommit myself to my spiritual path, who I
Yeah.
was, those all those years
Yep.
ago, and to remember that person, and to be able to move forward in that whole kind of way, in order to then be ready for Reiki training.
And Reiki has no time or space, connection too, as we know, it kind of goes, it flows. So even if you hadn't had the certifications prior to that, I mean, probably you look back and feel like Reiki was carrying you through, maybe.
1000%. Reiki
Right.
was with me. 1000%.
I can so
Nice.
relate to the way that you describe your experience with Reiki in terms of my experience with recovery, Christian. And now I do feel like the backbone of my recovery is my Reiki practice, along with other tools that I use. But I think that I used to tell people, I've been in recovery for 13 years because I've been alcohol and substance free for 13 years, and I've been working on myself, on my own healing. But I now recognize that I've been in recovery since I went to college and went to therapy for the first time, and really felt like there was a space for me to explore all of the things that I had experienced, primarily anxiety and depression. And so that created a foundation for me to be able to invite healing and recovery into my life. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Um, if someone was brand new to Reiki, what would your 2-minute elevator speech be to introduce someone to the system of Reiki?
Oh, great. Thank you so very much. I actually have a video on my YouTube channel. It is my 2-minute Reiki explanation. But the way that I think about Reiki is, first of all, I like to talk about Reiki in two ways: the system of Reiki and the energy Reiki. Because I think there is a lot of misconception out there about Reiki, and not really realizing that it is a whole system. When we hear the word Reiki, and what most people think of as Reiki, or their introduction to Reiki, is through the hands-on healing. And so I really like to, when I have conversations about Reiki, make sure that I'm talking about it in both senses. And so my introduction to Reiki, my elevator pitch, talks about, well, first we've got the system of Reiki, and it is a Japanese system that helps us to be more mindful, helps us to be more present and aware. And we have the energy of Reiki energy, which I believe is, to me, it's like, well, I think of it, of course, like chi or prana. And to me, I kind of picture it and think of it as an ever flowing, always rushing waterfall. So it's a never ending waterfall that we all have access to. It's flowing through and in all of us all of the time. And that we can tap into that energy, that waterfall, with intention at any time. And, I used to think of Reiki as a channeling. I'm going to channel Reiki. So I'm going to like stick my funnel into that waterfall and then direct the water where I want it to go. And Reiki is a funnel that we can use to direct that energy, and that it's one of an infinite number of funnels of tapping into that universal life force energy. To me, I think about it now on my journey as more of a cultivating, less of a channeling and more of a cultivating. And so, creating that space, we cultivating that space within us of the mindfulness and of the awareness, with intention. And I believe the intention is really the key point, because if Reiki is always already in us, and flowing through us, then we really only have to recognize that in order to quote cultivate it or tap into it.
I love that imagery that you used. I think it's really helpful in sharing Reiki with people that are new to Reiki to use a metaphor like that. You say on your website, I believe that the world needs more presence, more awareness, more mindfulness, compassion, connection, growth, and healing. I believe this is possible with Reiki. Maybe you do too. And my question was going to be, how would you offer support to folks who are maybe wanting to share Reiki with loved ones who are very skeptical of Reiki? What approach would you take?
Yeah, thanks for that, Andrea. And yes, I do believe that Reiki has the power to change the world and to bring us more of all of those things, the compassion and the kindness and the mindfulness. And I don't know about you, but I think we need a lot of that right now. And yes, just a little bit. And so, I as part of my work in this world, I really want to help to create all of those Reiki businesses, because that is going to have a major ripple effect on our world that we really and truly need so very much of, as our world becomes increasingly divided. And so when it comes to those divisions, they can and do happen in our own personal relationships as well. And so if we're Reiki practitioners and we have family and friends who are like, well, I don't want that Reiki thing, or what is that weird thing? And no thanks, no Reiki for me. Rather than, of course, we're encouraged to send Reiki to people with permission. And when we don't have permission from people, I encourage, rather than sending them Reiki, because again, like I mentioned at the beginning of our talk, it's not for us to say what Reiki's job is. And it's not for us to say who needs Reiki. Although I did say to my friend, you need Reiki. Whenever she was having a hard time, it was just like an instantaneous knowing that I had. But it's not for us to say what someone does or doesn't need. And so I think when we are faced with a situation where we really want to send Reiki to a family member, a friend who really needs Reiki, and they aren't interested, they think it's weird, they're like, whatever with your weird Reiki thing, keep away from me with your Reiki hands. I think in that situation that it's important for us to send it to ourselves, because obviously we're going to have some emotions and feelings about their response, and to send it to our relationship with them, because for whatever reason, we're feeling the need to help them. We're feeling the need that there's something that they need that maybe they feel that they don't need or want at this time. And so for us, there's obviously all kinds of feelings and emotions around that. And Reiki, on its most basic level, is a self practice first and foremost. And so, really, the most highest best thing that we can do with Reiki is to use it as a self practice and to work on ourselves first, including releasing the attachment to feeling the need to heal all of our family and friends with Reiki.
Great answer. Yes, I absolutely agree. Thank you for that.
You have mentioned that, you have kind of a mission and a calling to help others with Reiki business, and you have a book that came out last year, and you have a class I know that's starting tomorrow. So tell us about your mission to the 10,000 Reiki businesses, and why and how, how that came about, and how you plan on doing that, because that sounds like a tall order.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. And I wanted that. To me, when I was thinking about the helping of the building of the Reiki businesses, which just sprang organically from my own Reiki business. As I was seeing more and more Reiki practitioners as clients, and more of them were asking me about Reiki business questions and asking for help with their Reiki business. That was something that sprang organically within my own Reiki business. And when it came to, actually really sitting down and thinking about moving my business more in this direction, and all of the thinking and reflecting that comes along with that kind of a change in your own business and business model, I was like, okay, well, what is really the point of this? Yeah, to help create a better world. And what's going to help to create a better world? I was like, a million businesses. And I'm like, all right, that maybe try something a little bit more doable. So, when it came to the actual number, it's not so much about a number. It's more about the shift and the change. And to me, 10,000 sounded more doable than a million. Although,
Yeah, yeah.
let's go for a million, right? Because we're all in it together. We're all working on this together. And my mission is to help build 10,000 Reiki businesses, but that's with everyone else here, all of us together. It's all of us together that are going to create the massive shift that we desperately need in the world right now.
For
Love your
sure.
energy when you talk about Reiki, your enthusiasm. It just really comes through your earnestness and genuineness. How are you? I imagine you're doing this in many ways, but how do you practice the Reiki precepts in your life, in your daily life?
Thanks, Andrea. With a lot of struggle and challenge. If all we ever did for our whole lives was focus on the precepts, that's enough work for the rest of our lives and then some.
Yep.
And so for me, my self practice, definitely self Reiki every day. Sometimes it's longer than others, oftentimes now at this point on my Reiki journey, it has changed, but right now on my Reiki journey, I do self Reiki in the morning before I get out of bed. And I got 3 cats, and some mornings, I don't spend as much time as other mornings because those cats want breakfast.
Yeah.
But it's self Reiki, it's the focusing on the precepts, it's the meditations. But the most challenging thing, of course, for me always is those precepts. And they really are the foundation of Reiki for a reason. It's because they're so simple and yet so profound. And if that's all we ever did as part of our spiritual journey, then we've got a lot of work ahead of us. And so, the way that I work with the precepts is with a lot of challenge and a lot of struggle.
It's a very honest answer.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
What else have you got going on? So I many years ago studied the runes, and I love the fact that you're a rune reader. I got away from it a little bit. I'm a Gabo girl. I have an X necklace somewhere in the closet over there. But I don't know a whole lot about runes. And then I know you do card readings. How does all that integrate with Reiki? Like, I know, are they more separate, compartmentalized, or is it integrated as part of like a holistic practice?
Yeah, great question, Lynn. Thanks. And for anyone listening who's like, Gabo, what's that? It is one of the Viking runes. It's in the shape of an X. That's its symbol, and it has layers. The Viking runes have layers of meaning, and it's sometimes called the rune of partnership, the rune of love, the rune of commitment. But for me, they are all intertwined because it's really all about that coming back to ourselves and returning to ourselves, like I mentioned previously, that spiritual sense of self. And so to me, card reading is a spiritual practice. As a matter of fact, I was reading cards before I became a Reiki practitioner. And so it's the card reading is the spiritual practice. The Reiki, it's the spiritual practice. It all comes back to that inner sense of wholeness within ourselves and bringing those separate parts, those things that might seem separate, because Reiki and card reading are not the same thing, and Reiki doesn't have anything to do with card reading. But I will say my Reiki practice absolutely informs my card reading. And so we might say, well, those two things are so separate and so different, but they're parts of that greater whole. And that greater whole is always greater than the sum of all of its parts. And so when you add Reiki to card reading, we get something greater than each of those separately. And so that's the way that I really view my own spiritual practice, is that all of the pieces, the card reading and the Reiki and the meditation and the nature stuff and all of my practices, my spiritual practices. I have a set of 7 spiritual practices that I call the 7-way path, journaling and nature and all of those types of things. For me, those are all different pieces that are not really so different because they all come together to create a larger whole, and a whole that is greater than the sum of all of its parts. And so while all of it might seem compartmentalized, I think that on our own life's journey, we are so much greater than we might realize in terms of those pieces. Like at the beginning, you each introduced yourselves. I'm a mother, I'm a partner, I'm a this, I'm a that. But you're so much more than all of those things, right? Because all of those pieces come together to create the whole of who you are, but you're so much greater than all of those things added together. Because if you took one of those things away, you're still completely whole, and you're still just as great as all of those things added together, if that makes any sense. So in other words,
Yeah.
you can take a piece away, but it doesn't subtract from the overall greater whole.
I would love to touch on really quick. I wanted to ask you about your experience with nature. You're also in Pennsylvania. I'm originally from Boston and I love New England. And I was just looking at some photos of yours that were taken in Vermont in the snow. And it sounds like you have a real affinity for hiking and things like that.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I previously lived in Massachusetts as well. So I lived in Vermont for several years. I lived in Massachusetts for several years. Here I am in central Pennsylvania right now, and I absolutely love nature. I'm a big proponent of the power of nature for healing and growth, and absolutely things like recovery. Nature is such an amazing healer. And so for me, nature, I need it. I need nature. Nature is something I have to have. I need to get out into nature. I need to be able to get outside and be healed by nature. And so for me, I am a big lover of nature. And it's also a major part of my own spiritual practice. As I believe, not to push my beliefs on anybody else, I think it should be for everyone.
I think
That's
that's actually
beautiful.
evidence-based that there's actual healing that happens being in nature. So it's not so much a belief as a fact. I'm gonna
Yes,
back
that's
you up
right.
on that one.
It's true. It is. I've done a lot of research actually on practices like nature because, being in nature is one of my 7-way path practices. So I've done a lot of research on those. And it's true. We have lots and lots of studies on the healing power of nature. And so for me, it's a powerful way to clear my mind, to feel rejuvenated, to feel empowered, to feel calm, to feel supported as well. And, to me, it's also a magical place. So I've experienced a lot of magic in nature, the spirit of the woods leaving me all kinds of cool things like hawk and eagle feathers and just all kinds of stuff. So, yes, I do absolutely love nature, and I make sure to get out into it frequently.
Beautiful.
So before we wrap this up, because I'm looking at the time and it's flying by, tell us about the offerings that you have coming up so that we can, where, if somebody watches this and wants to connect with you, where should they go and what do you have coming up in the next year?
Yeah, sure, Lynn. Thank you so much. So, in the next year, first of all, I have a free class in February on Reiki Business, and it is based on my Reiki Business Ready book, which you can grab on all Amazon platforms. But the class is a free live 4-week class, Sundays in February. So anyone is welcome to join that, especially if you are just considering a Reiki business and wondering if it's right for you or wondering if now is the time. This is a great class to be able to come and discuss that. I also am offering a monthly gathering for Reiki business discussions. It's called the Reiki Business Roundtable, and that's at the end of each month. So you're welcome to join us for the Reiki Business Roundtable, no matter where you are on your Reiki business journey. We have, of course, coming up later this year, the Reiki Business Summit again. So, another Reiki Business Summit with discussions about Reiki business topics, speakers, Reiki business leaders speaking on a variety of topics, discussions, and all kinds of ways to learn and to help you move your Reiki business forward. So, those are some things that I have going on coming up in the future. So thank you so much for asking.
Yeah, and remind us what your different books are called again.
Yeah, so the throwing, no, not throwing stones, standing like the stones is the life change book. And that one is free on my website. You can get it at standingstoneshealing.com/kit. So that's free for anyone. You can go download that and read it right now. As a matter of
Great.
fact, if you go to download it and it takes a long time, it's because it's a big book full of a lot of pictures. It's a big file, I should say, but it won't take you long to read. The audio book is also there, and a couple other things too, but you can grab that straight away. My Throwing Stones rune reading guide is actually part of my Unlock Your Card Magic course. So I don't offer that separately. It is part of Unlock Your Card Magic. Because there's a bonus rune reading program that goes along with that Unlock Your Card Magic program. And then, of course, Reiki Business Ready you can get on Amazon. And I got a couple other books in the works that will eventually be published. We'll see when I get around to that.
You have a
That's
lot going
awesome.
on, Christian. That's wonderful.
Awesome. Well, I had a great time in the summit that you did last November, and I will look forward to the next one. And I definitely plan on joining the roundtable, so we'll be seeing each other monthly for that.
Thank you, Lynn. That's great. It'll be great to see you.
Yeah.
I would love to join you too. It sounds like you do an amazing job of offering your time and your knowledge and experience to folks to really make your message accessible. So thank you.
No, Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. And the truth is that we are all in this together. We are all here supporting one another. And I know, for me on my journey, including my Reiki business journey, having lots of questions and challenges and doing it alone. On the phone, like I said, offering distance Reiki on the phone, all by myself, and really trying to figure it all out. And so if I can help others to not have to figure out the things that I had to figure out, I'm happy to do that. And I'm happy to help because definitely the world needs more Reiki.
That's a great way to end this interview. I think the world needs more Reiki, and thank you for being one of the lights out there that's guiding people towards it. Thank you, Christian. Thank you for your time today, for being here. It's always so good to see you and talk to you. Thank you for all that you do out there in the Reiki world. It's really an honor to be your friend.
It was so
Thank
great to
you.
meet you, Christian. I really enjoyed our time together, and I hope that we can stay connected.
Yes, thank you both so very much. And thank you everyone for tuning in. It's an honor to have you here, and I'm sending you lots of blessings and best wishes.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.